But we'll work with it. We'll do what we can do. Hello and welcome. My name is Darshawn McAway. Welcome to the 6-part series of the Jumpman Edition, reevaluation, how to become successful in your own life. Now, we have a lot of things to talk about, and let's get started. So we're going to do a simple recap from parts 1 through 5. Of course, today is part 6. So part 1, we talked about the introduction to re-evaluation of yourself and how to become successful and what that looks like, and basically who started it. And it was a gentleman by the name of Harvey Jackins. And I was also making sure that we disassociated ourselves amongst anything that he did that had to do with any type of assault or anything cult wise, right? So part 2, or things not to do when you're having a one-on-one sit down session with someone and you're trying to release all your frustrations or your past traumas. And part 3 was achieving balance. How do you achieve balance in your own personal life and what that looks like? A lot of the times you can't judge your life off of someone else because you don't know what they've been through. So how do you find your own centeredness? We talked about that in part 3. And to make sure that when you do find your centeredness, that you're doing it right. A lot of people will tell you what you're doing wrong, but just remember you're doing it right. Part 4 was getting into the notion of hearing how some of the disturbing things that people say about what happened to them in their past, how not to hold on to those things, and how to bring that person right back around to find their happy place, their happy moment, or that happy emotion. Part 5 was standing up for yourself. So at some point in your life, you're going to go through a lot of different things. And when you step out into the world, you're going to realize that people are going to say things to you. They're going to give their personal critique, their personal opinion. They're going to lay on their stereotypes and how you should not allow for people to just treat you any sort of way because you have a limited amount of time on earth. And of course, we're into part 6. Part 6 is all about go be successful. Watch, listen, and learn, and move with the flow of life. It's very difficult to do this. The reason I chose this particular series and titled it Jumpman is because one of the greatest players of all time, Michael Jordan, number 23, one of the great Chicago Bulls, what I noticed about his life was when he was winning his championships, Michael Jordan was at his best. He was in his prime. He was working on himself. And in order to become the leader that he did, the other players followed suit. If people notice that you're not working on yourself, they can see it in your life. They can see it in your vocabulary. They can see it in your finances. They can see it in your work environment. So what do? How do you go be successful? How do you do this whole thing where you become personally successful in your own life to achieve those great finances, to achieve those championship rings that you're looking for? We're all looking for some sort of championship or reward at the end, but what are you doing in your everyday life to pursue that? What are you doing to make up for it? And I noticed that Michael Jordan would stay longer, shoot more, changed up his diet, got his focus right. He focused on his family. He removed a lot of things out of his life. But a lot of people will also point out, well, he was into gambling. He did a lot of negative stuff. So let's talk about that. In order to be successful, you are going to have some downsides in your life. You're not going to always start off on the good foot. A lot of times what happens with us is we work at places that we don't want to work at. We do things that we don't want to do because we're looking at, well, I don't have the money to do this, and I'm already behind the 8 ball, meaning I'm already behind on my bills, car notes, payments, don't have too much food in the refrigerator. How am I going to get to the place I need to get to? And what you have to do is you have to change your mindset. You really have to change your mindset. Listen, when I was about 16 years old, the things that happened for me were I worked at it was like my first official job where I had a W-2. I worked at the Palm Beach Kennel Club. And I'm just going to name a few jobs. And I wasn't happy with working at the Palm Beach Kennel Club because, one, my mom had forced me to get a job. My dad told her, hey, he needs to work. He can either come up here with me and do construction, or he needs to get a job down there. So I opted out of the construction, went to the Kennel Club, and I was getting paid $116 a week. I was 16 years old. I was in high school. I was playing basketball. I was making my grades. But from 7 p.m., 7:30 to 8, somewhere up in there, to midnight, I was working at the dog track. And I worked there for about a good maybe 6 months. I know I worked there for the remainder of the school year for the most part, but 6 months I know for sure. And in that, I started to realize that at 16, I do not want to work for anyone, or I don't want to work at all. I wasn't into working like that. I understood that you need to do things, but it was something about it that made me feel like I don't want to be here. I'm waking up in the morning to be here. How do I get out of this place? So I started to realize that, you know what? Let me figure out what am I going to do to become rich. So I honed in on my drawing capabilities. I was looking around the world trying to figure out what invention can I design. So at 16, I drew up a couple things, but I didn't know how to get it out there to the world. As time goes on, you become 17, 18, 19, 20. I started working at different jobs, and I fell in that same loop like everyone else, working at a place that I don't want to work at. The whole world is looking at me as like, well, you're a young man. What do you expect? And somewhere deep in my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to be great. Why can't people see my greatness? I didn't know how to express it. Whatever you see in me right now, I was the same way when I was a teenager. I was still trying to get to where I'm at now back then, but no one would believe me. No one took me serious. Everyone kept on saying, you got to put in your dues. You got to pay your dues. People will purposely make you do something just because they want to see you struggle. They want to see you have a hard time. They don't want to give it to you easy. Remember what I told you guys? I told you guys that life isn't hard. People make it hard for you. So you got to imagine, between the ages of 16 through 23, there were people in my life that purposely made it hard for me when I could show them on paper that I can draw. Here was my plan. What do you think about it? I was so busy trying to get people to invest in me to show them that, hey, I believe in myself. And that's where it starts. It starts with people believing in you. I knew that way before people started telling me, in order for you to become rich and successful and have all the things that you want, and you want people to invest in you, you have to believe in yourself first, and then others will follow suit. Well, it didn't happen. It didn't work out that way. What happened was people kept on making it hard for me. They kept on telling me that it's not going to work. Why would you design that? Why would you come up with this? So I worked at places like the dog track. I worked at BrandSmart. I worked at Lowe's. I worked at Sam's Club. And I kept on falling into the same slump. I don't want to be here. It's not enough money. I'm not living my life. I'm not pursuing my dreams. I'm not pursuing my visions. I feel like I'm just wasting my time. And that's exactly what we end up doing. We end up wasting time. So as time moves on, what happened for me was I went back home to live with my mom in a roundabout way, was moving around, moving different places. And my mom kicked me out. She kicked me out at roughly about 24 years of age. And at the time, I didn't understand it. But then as I look back on it, I'm glad that she did, because it helped me look at people in my family and look at people in the world and know that people do care about you, but they don't care about you the way you think they should. And that's very important to understand. People care about you, but they don't care about you the way you think they should. So when my mom kicked me out, and at the age of 24, that's when I realized that I need to really focus on what it is that I want to become in my life and stick with it. So in that, what happened for me was this. And let me tell you how all of this played a big factor, right? The websites I'm about to show you are something that came out of a happy place. When I was 24, I had moved in with my godfather. My godfather sat down with me and said, hey, what is it that you really want to do? And how can we get you to focus on it? And he says, however long it takes, I want you to figure it out. I'm going to support you. But at the same time, I need you to be really focused on what you're trying to do, because I want to see you make it. So I told him that I want to become a writer. And he was like, oh, okay, no problem. How are you going to achieve that? And I said, well, I've been looking up some things on how to publish a book. And I reached out to a few publishers, but I didn't have the manuscript. I'm going to work on the manuscript tomorrow. So he says, okay, cool. What type of books are you going to write? I said, I'm going to start off writing poetry. He said, okay, no problem. So this is what happened, guys. At the age of 23, what happened for me was this. Let's see, where is it at? What happened for me was this. I ended up writing. Let's see, can I get it in there? Is it over there? Can it go? All right, it's not going to do it. I ended up writing one of the um, best selling books of all time, right? Let's do this. Let's do this, guys. I don't know why my computer's going so slow. This is happening in real time. So what ended up happening for me was at the age of 23, because people believed into me. Well, my godfather did. I ended up writing "Do You Mind If" over 170,000 copies sold, and I was 24. Excuse me, I was 24 years of age, and when I wrote the, I was out from my mom's house, living with my godfather. You are going to go through some downsides. There are some things that are going to happen to you that are going to try to push you away from your pursuits, push you away from your happiness. And this book right here, if we can ever get it to pop up, this book right here is the pinnacle point of my success. This is where it all started. I was 24 years old. I published this book in the year 2006, 2007. And right now, when I first got started, I was selling the book for $17.99. Why $17.99? Because I was born on December 17th. And what I wanted to do was sell the book an entire month before my birthday, because with books, you get paid a royalty, and that royalty comes out once a month, right? And however many books you sell 30 days later, that's the money that you receive. So I made it my personal goal to market and write as much and sell as much as I could in order to achieve my goal of financial success. Now, it says here that this book was released in 2011, but I think what happened is I think I did a revision a couple years ago, and then it went from there. But it was released in 2006. The copyright is 2006. So, in that, guys, at the age of 24, you have to realize that I wasn't making my life hard, right? I was trying to become successful. But when I was telling people that I wanted to become a writer, they told me, well, you don't know how to write. I've heard that. I've heard that. You don't know how to write. And I was like, yes, I do. I know how to write. What are you talking about? So in that, what I wanted to express with you guys is the simple fact that I wasn't making my life hard. It was people making life hard for me, people who did not believe in me. I wrote the book, but there were some people who still didn't want to support it. People would say, oh, good for you. But at the same time, no one's buying it, right? No one's buying it from me offhand. So I had to keep on doing what I was doing online. I had to do Google Translate in different languages to convince other people to buy my book as a download for $1.99. And I only raised it up after all these years to $2.99, but it first started off as $1.99. And I did the very best I could to make it happen. So I did go through some hard times. I got a chance to talk about this to um, in a one-on-one sit down with people, but I also wanted to make sure that instead of just talking about how to be successful, I wanted to point out that I went through a lot of rough times. I went through a period where I almost died. I went through a transition to where my skin and my health were just poor. I couldn't think right. There was no happiness in my life. I was too negative about the world. My perception about life was just skewed. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't get out of it. And I was dealing with people who were going through the same thing. They were miserable, so I attached myself to their miserability as well. And I didn't want that for my life, you know. So as we move on, what I want to show people is I started to develop what I call my own publishing company. And in that, if you go to my website, darshawnmcaway.com, in that, I end up showing people that all these things, all these tabs, on my page, these are all the things that I believed in for myself. These are all the things I believed in for myself. So I ended up creating a children's publishing company, okay, a clothing line, a cologne, a podcast. I did my own docu-series. So I got into producing a film. I have on here my best-selling books, all my published books, and I ended up also doing a wine collection. But all of this didn't come just because it was just easy. A lot of it came with a lot of frustration and a lot of upset, a lot of heartbreak, and a lot of just personal disappointment. But I didn't want to fall in that notion of this is what my life is. I wanted to come out of that slump and say, you know what? I'm going to be successful. And in doing that, we end up creating these wonderful companies. Here's babyauthors.com, the best selling children's book series. That was the article. Cool. Here we have the clothing line, the shoes, Desperate Worshiper. Okay. Right here. And this is something that I don't talk about because I ended up selling it. But right here, if we can go to it, let's go right here. If I ended up coming out with my own condom company, I had one company was titled Slow Condom Swagnums, and I ended up selling to myself. And so there's a different thing to come up. But here's the podcast. And then here, that was the Apple. Okay. So let's go back here. We'll go back to DarshawnMcAway.com. We'll just go from there. And we have the book. We want to show you guys the books in Walmart as well. And what happened for me at the time, I was trying to figure out, how do I get my books, and when I first was working at Sam's Club, about 19, and I was trying to find out how people get products and stuff. And some of the employees wouldn't even tell me. It's 35. I'm currently 39. At 35, I'm inside of Walmart. Plenty of times. We'll move on. So, I wanted to make sure that when I talk about this series, that I talk about the things that didn't always work out for me, because to be successful, it's like, okay, how do I be successful? Referring to is how you need to keep your personal peace and your personal yourself. Because a lot of times, what a lot of people will do to you is tell you, them that you're going to find someone to motivate you and say, hey, you're doing it right, but just change it up this way, or do it a little bit more. See, a lot of times I don't even discourage people when it comes to certain things. I just ultimately tell people, all right, how are you going to pursue it? Because you already asked somebody about your idea before and they said, oh, well, why would you want to do that? You know how many people tell other people about their visions and their goals, and the other person just automatically discourages them instantly. And you go, I'm not talking to that person anymore, because they don't understand that I'm trying to live my life to the fullest. So what I started to realize was, how did I become personally successful in my life? And here's where the whole part 6 comes into play. I stopped giving my personal opinion. I stopped talking about my my personal past issues and I got focused and I said to myself, I'm going to force myself to be happy. I'm going to make this happen for myself. I'm going to figure out, how do I get this to work for me? If these are my ideas, this is my vision, these are my goals, this is my dream, how do I make it work for me? I stopped worrying about what was happening in the world. I would watch. I no longer commented, no longer gave my personal opinion. I was upset, had a chip on my shoulder for years. I wouldn't say that it was a racist rhetoric that I was thinking about, but I looked at the world as so much hate and so much racism. I don't want to be a part of it. So I started minding my business. And when I started minding my business and just started like watching things and just listening, I realized that I had more peace. I had more peace. I had more balance. And I had a better thinking pattern on what to do for myself. Because the world was busy commenting, making videos, and doing everything else. I was busy living. I was living my life, making my dreams happen. It's like things started lining up for me and I started running into the right people who were positive, had high energy, and they were happy and they were looking for someone like me. So I followed the same pattern, and this pattern is the pattern I'm teaching you guys in this 6-part series. I found someone that I could talk to. I told them about my issues. They redirected me to my happiness. I started figuring out what was wrong with me. I started figuring out which direction I wanted to go in. I started to notice that I'm achieving balance in my life. I also started to realize that the world's problems, that's that issue. It's not mine. I have to worry about what's in my environment. I can't worry about what's happening 2,000 miles away. I have to worry about what's happening like right now in my moment. There's nothing I can do about all the mischief that happens in the world. So I kept my peace. I developed a better nutrition. I developed a better diet, started working out, keeping myself healthy. Of course, our bodies are meant to age and do certain things. So you're going to fall into certain issues. But for the most part, am I happy? Absolutely. Do I have peace? Yes, I do. Are things working for me? Yes. Do things not work for me? Of course. But on a scale from 1 to 10, how much should I be complaining? None. I put myself in certain circumstances. I make the choice. I have to handle it. I have to do the best I can do to make it work for myself. And then when I'm out here in the world, I make sure that I stand up for myself and not let anyone talk to me any sort of way or treat me any sort of way just because they feel like it's right to do so. It's okay to tell somebody, hey, you're ruining my happiness. You're making me feel uncomfortable. What you're saying to me is unnecessary. You have to understand that you have a finite amount of time on earth. And the last thing you need is to carry on what somebody said about you into your home to mess up your peace. So you have to be able to stand up for yourself. And I found that when you stand up for yourself, you actually, and this is just my personal outtake on it, you become more successful. And then people start to see that you're a leader in your life. People can tell from your demeanor, like who you are and what you have going on. They can see if you're a well put together man or woman. They can hear it in your vocabulary. They can see it in your mannerism. They can just tell, and they gravitate towards you. That's where the whole notion of law of attraction comes from. Things happen for people all the time. Money flows to them all the time. Great things happen to people all the time. Law of attraction. And don't forget the contrast. There are bad things that happen to good people or bad things that happen to bad people all the time. It's a never ending story. It's never going to stop. But when it comes to looking at the world and how can we stop being racist? How can we stop sending people to jail unjustly or getting killed unjustly? All these different things. There's a way to do it. It's called minding your business. And that's what I did. So I hope you guys find this helpful in this 6-part series of reevaluation, the Jumpman edition, how to become successful in your own personal life. I hope you guys understand that all I'm simply trying to tell you guys is be able to find someone that you can talk to about your problems. Hopefully, they don't use it against you. And in that, be able to talk about your issues, but also find those sweet spots of happiness. Because what starts to happen when you think more of the happy thoughts, you start to realize that the negative things that happen to you or the negative things that you want to talk about, you don't give it any energy. And that's the main thing I wanted people to learn from this. You have to keep yourself as happy as possible. And when you do that, you're going to find success. It's going to come your way. So, real quickly, we're going to do our outro. We're going to wrap up the series. Of course, we want to thank our stream sponsor, balancecologne.com. Please go to balancecologne.com. Tell them that Darshan sent you. We have the men's fragrance line. This company has been established since the year 2018. So go check out Balance Cologne. Of course, you know me. I'm your host, Darshan McAway. You can go to darshanmcaway.com and check out all things Darshan. Don't forget to go check out the best-selling children's series, Naya's Adventures, on babyauthors.com. Feel free to just swing by and browse through the clothing line, Desperate Worshipper. Bring out the desperate worshiper in you. Of course, this is the platform of wowpodcast.me. Typically, what we do on this podcast is talk about trending topics, but for the most part, we love to talk to New York Times and USA Today best-selling authors and talk about how they're going about writing their books, marketing their books, and how did they become bestsellers. So if you want to be a part of that and be a guest, email me at wowpodcast@mail.com. Also, feel free to always swing by and give me a shout out. Buy me a bottle of water, if you will, on the Cash App, $1plan. And don't forget, live life to the fullest. And don't take this as a stab, but life isn't hard. Just remember, people make it hard for you. I'm your host, Darshan McAway. We want to thank you guys so much for coming through and listening to this 6-part series, the Jumpman edition of how to become successful, reevaluating your personal life and assessing it as you see fit. I appreciate you guys. We want to catch you guys on the flip side. Also, let's do this before we exit. Let's go ahead and give a moment of silence to the men and women who are losing their lives unjustly and the people who didn't make it on this side of glory today. Thank you and good night.